Everybody, welcome back to the Canadian Heritage Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. And of course, we today are doing some committee business. That is true. However, I think in the first part, we wanted to deal with any of those motions that we have out there that we'd like to discuss at this point. Oh, I see a hand up. I see Mr. Champoux.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ensure that we would be able to examine the motion that we received from the House in order to talk about sexual harassment and psychological abuse of athletes. This is a motion that was sent to us after unanimous consent of the House on April 28th. I would like for us to discuss it, and I will wait for your signal in order to do so.
Absolutely, Mr. Champoux. That's one of the things I wanted to bring up. As far as the order of things go, I see that I have two other people who'd like to weigh in. So let me deal with that first before we get to some sort of an agenda about these motions. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to bring forward the motion that I have given notice of. The notion, and I'll read it in if that's your pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I because I wanted to take this sort of as it goes. Can I go to Mr. Reyes first?
Certainly.
Because I'm just trying to come up with an agenda in my head here as what we want to do first. But Mr. Reyes, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As my colleagues, I would like to remind you that I tabled a motion and I was requesting one meeting before the end of the session. That was accepted unless I'm wrong, and that was going to be activated after C10, the notice of the motion that had to do with editors, creators, and artists, and for copyright. I just wanted to make that reminder because I know there are many issues ongoing, but I'm pretty sure that we had agreed after C10 to reserve at least one meeting for that.
The short answer is yes, we did. Now, Mr. Reyes, do you want me to deal with that in the public portion of the meeting, or do you want to wait till committee business? Because I was planning to bring it up at committee business. Or do you want to deal with it before we go to committee business?
Je n'ai aucun problème. J'aime cette collégialité que nous...
That's fine. I don't mind. I know we had 2 or 3 difficult weeks, so I just wanted to make that reminder, and I will refer to you and you can let me know when to bring it up. And all of the other requests from my colleagues are very relevant, so thank you.
Okay, so since I'll leave that for committee business because I plan to bring that up first when we get into committee business, Mr. Reyes. So from what I see right now, we have 2 things to deal with. We have on the table to discuss Ms. McPherson's motion she presented to us Friday, June 4th. You all have a copy of that. And then we go into the unanimous motion passed in the House that was passed April 28th. Yes, okay. So we'll get to that in just a few moments. How about we deal with Ms. McPherson's issue first, because she had requested at the last meeting to bring it up and to be in public. So Ms. McPherson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and nice to see everybody on this Monday morning. So I will read the motion, and then I can discuss a little bit about why I think it is something that we should be supportive of. So the motion is that the Department of Canadian Heritage table with the committee in no later than June 20th, 2021, a copy of the initial agreement, including any subsequent amendments in both official languages between Canadian Heritage and Netflix Canada, signed in 2017 and entered into under the Investment Canada Act. And the reason that I have brought forward this motion is I do have some concerns that, when we saw the 2021 budget come forward, when we saw that there was an exemption for Netflix, that I'm worried that we don't, without being able to understand what is in that agreement, without being able to understand what is being given or what gifts are being given to Netflix, it's very difficult for us to understand if it's an appropriate playing field, an equal playing field for the broadcasting sector. It's from my perspective worrying to see Netflix be excluded. And so I think to do our job as committee members, it's important that we have an opportunity to look at this and examine this and ensure that it meets sort of the highest standards that we would be expected to be undertaking for this. So that's why I've brought the motion forward. I can answer any questions anyone might have, but that I think is a part of our job, is to make sure that our broadcasting sector is not we're not disproportionately benefiting one company over others. Certainly not a company that is not a Canadian company over others. So that's my motion. I'd like your support, please.
Thank you. Ms. DeBruzen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So while I absolutely disagree with the premise underlying the motion about Netflix facing exclusions, and I think most people who are Netflix subscribers have probably received a notice, in fact, of their intention to be contributing towards Canadian taxes. Regardless of that part, I actually do think that, in the interests of transparency, that I would support this motion. But I do disagree with the premise and think that there are some inaccuracies that would need to be addressed, perhaps when everyone takes a good look at C10 and as well their Netflix notifications and the actual Budget Implementation Act that might be clarified.
Monsieur Champoux.
À peu près dans le même sens.
I have a similar comment. I support that request. I'm shocked that we have to make such a request for documents that we should have known about for a long time. This is an agreement that has significant impacts, and we should be informed of them. So I think that for transparency's sake, we should have access to the main ideas between the agreement of the government and Netflix. So I support this.
Monsieur Reyes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. In order to save some time, because we do have other files that we want to study, I would like for us to move to a vote on Ms. McPherson's request. I think that we'll see very quickly that there is consent.
Okay, seeing no further conversation. Very good, Mr. Reyes. You've inspired us to move on. So seeing no further comment on that, we now go to a vote. You all see and read and heard what was put forward by Ms. McPherson. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare it accepted and passed. Very good. So that will be included. I'll bring this up again in the next conversation, folks, when we talk about the agenda that is coming up. But right now, we're going on to what was accepted in the House by unanimous consent. It was resolved. What I'm going to do is, Mr. Champoux, before I give you the floor, I'm just going to paraphrase some of this stuff. It's just a précis, if don't mind, that following allegations of psychological abuse, neglect, sexual harassment, and racial discrimination of 5 former members of the Canadian Artistic Swimming Senior National Team by coaches and staff, the House, and this is where I'll cut it down, it's fairly lengthy, recognized national sports organizations are environments which due in particular to the extremely intense competitive atmosphere. B, recognize that it is the responsibility of the government to do everything in its power to protect our high performance athletes. And C, ask the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage to undertake a study on the establishment of an independent body for handling complaints in sports, which will establish a climate of trust so that victims can report without fear of reprisals. I know you all have a copy. I thought I would just do that in case anybody is watching us through a webcast, but that's what we're discussing. And Mr. Champoux, you have the floor.
Je serai bref, Monsieur le Président.
I'll be quite brief, Mr. Chair, because I think you summarized quite well. This request had received unanimous consent of the House, so I imagine that my colleagues are already aware of the content. There are major sports events that will be resuming shortly. The Olympics, for example. These allegations are nothing new. These phenomena are nothing new that we see in different parts of amateur sports, and usually it's high-level athletes that faced harassment or psychological abuse for years. And we have members of the committee or friends of the committee members who were athletes who could even testify about this, who may have witnessed it or been victim of it rather. I think that it's quite urgent that we examine this. We've been pushing this to another date for too long, and I think that for the limited time that we have left in this session, I think that we should do a short, brief, but exhaustive study, because there are high-level athletes and aspiring athletes, and they're at risk of being in such a situation. So I believe that this request is legitimate, and I think that we should put our attention to that. Thank you.
Ms. McPherson.
I just had a very quick question about this. Would this, from my understanding, the scope of this motion is that it would look particularly at artistic swimming, but we know that athletes across Canada in a number of different sports would actually be impacted in similar ways, that it is not something that is unique to artistic swimming. Would there be scope to examine this outside of that, or because of the time constraints that we have, will we be looking solely at one sport as opposed to any others?
Before I go to Mr. Reyes, yes, that's going to be part of the discussion we can have regarding the whole schedule in the broader context as to what we do first. We have to line that up. In the meantime, I will do some consulting about this, Ms. McPherson, because I think you raise a very good point as for the scope of this study. I'll leave it at that for now, and we can probably discuss this again a little bit later, but I think you do bring up a good point, and thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Reyes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I completely agree with my colleague, Monsieur Champoux, for the study. Regarding your question, Ms. McPherson, I think that if we are to conduct a study, it should be on all sports and not only one sport. As a former soccer trainer, there was cases of coaches that were caught and charged, and I think that if we are to do a study, I think that parliamentarians will be able to see what can be done, and it should focus on all sports. And I would like to come back to my motion request that I believe we had accepted. It would be only one meeting, and I think that Monsieur Champoux's request will require more than one meeting for us to properly do our job. And I think that because we have 2 meetings left, excluding today, before the end of the session in June, we can see what can be done in the short term and see what can be done when we come back in the fall, so that we can properly focus on the issue put forward by Monsieur Champoux. That is what I wanted to share with the committee.
Madame Bessette.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The interpreter would like to note that the sound is not good enough.
Madame Bessette, I apologize. The interpreters are having a problem with your sound.
Okay, because I'm inside right now.
Okay, I think it might be cutting in and out. How about I just let you proceed? Go ahead, and we'll see how this works.
Let me move. Maybe the connection is not. Is it better now? I think it looks like it could be
It
better.
appears. I mean, to me it is, but I'm not sure about the translation or the interpretation, rather.
Okay.
How about you go ahead, and we'll see how this works.
Monsieur le Président, point d'ordre.
We can't hear. I can't hear what she's saying. I don't know if perhaps if she turns her camera off, I can't hear anything.
Okay, one moment.
C'est un
Okay,
problème qui est beaucoup. Pourtant, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but go ahead and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Je voulais juste dire qu'en fait, on aurait.
I just wanted to say that we would need more than one meeting for our study on athletes. Can you hear me? Because I think that the problem is bigger than one or two meetings. I worked in sports, as you know, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, merci, madame. Now go to, did I see Mr. Shump? No, okay. Folks, we have a couple things here to consider. I know during committee business, we normally do this in camera. So we have a choice. We can either stay as public as this, or we can go in camera to discuss the in-committee business. If I do that, it appears I need a motion to do that, and I can't move the motion myself if you wanted to go in camera. Otherwise, we have to stay in public. Would anyone like to move a motion or no? And Madame Bissette, I see your hand up, but was that from the last? Okay, and Mr. Reyes.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair, I don't see any problem if committee members want to stay in public to save time, but if you would prefer that it be in camera, if somebody says that it's essential, I think that the topics that we're talking about could be talked about in public so that we save time instead of switching into in camera.
Okay. I have, like I said, I have no issues being in public either. I just that every time we've done meetings talking about the future schedule, we've always done them in camera. So I'm just doing this from the usual practice. But if you want to stay in public, that's fine. We can do that. And if you don't, you can just move a motion to go in camera. Mr. Champoux.
Moi, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la proposition.
I agree with Mr. Reyes that we can stay public. I think that what we're talking about today is nothing confidential or secret, and we want to show transparency in this committee so we can lead by example. And for Ms. Bessett's comments, I don't believe that this topic is something that we can debate or solve in one or two meetings. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take many more, but we do need to start this work. Firstly, because it needs to be done at some point and it hasn't been done yet. And secondly, because we need to tell athletes, we have heard you. We understand. I know it's late, but we are going to act for you. And we want to ensure that that kind of climate in amateur sports or high-level sports will no longer be accepted under any circumstance. So even if we have only one meeting and then we continue the work later, that's fine, but we need to send the message to athletes and coaches and everyone around these athletes that we have understood and that it's late, but we're going to act. So I propose that we at least start with the base of what we're going to examine, and we can start there and show them that it's important to us. So we can discuss it, but I believe that regardless of how much time is left, we need to start this study.
Okay, before I go to Ms. DeBruzen, so I'll just start right now. So we're started in committee business, just so everyone knows. I certainly have no problem going public. That's great. And we'll stay in public for now. We'll talk about the business. What I'm going to do is I'm going to list the motions that we have passed for upcoming studies and other things we want to look at as well. Before I do that, however, I'm going to Ms. DeBruzen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted, and I think it's a good idea to go through the list of the motions because there are many. One that I wanted to highlight was the one that was brought by Mr. Waugh, which I think many Canadians, certainly when I'm speaking with my constituents, would be very interested in knowing more about. And it would seem that given that it involves getting department officials, which might be a little bit easier than than general witness lists together, it's something that we could probably move towards by even this Friday. So I'm just putting, I know that we have a long list of motions to consider, but if I could put my support for moving that towards the top of the list for the rest of, like at the end of this week, for our next meeting, that's where I would put it. I see Mr. Wall giving his thumbs up. I'm only speaking for him because he can't speak today because of his sound issues. Thank you.
That's very generous of you. Okay, so what I'll do right now is, and I'm not moving on off of the issue about sports, but I will get back to that in just a few moments. But I just wanted to give you the broad context of what we're looking at for over the next little while. Upcoming studies or already before the committee. We have, of course, there is the issue of supplementary estimates A, consider as we normally do. Now, 7th allotted day and Thursday, June 19th is really our deadline for that, for going back. So it's too late to do votes on supplementary estimates A, as C10 took up a big chunk of the time, but we can study it as subject matter. I'll just leave that right there. That we can do that if you so desire. So let's get into the motion that was adopted on March 26, anti-Asian racism. I don't have to go through the whole motion. I think it was just talked about. So I will say, however, that there was one stipulation in that says no later than 180 calendar days from the adoption of this motion pursuant to Standing Order 109. And then, of course, tabling a comprehensive report. Now, 180 calendar days from the adoption of the motion from March 26 is Tuesday, September 21st. So please bear that in mind. So that's basically when we come back. I forget the actual date. Madam Clerk, what's the tentative date for the opening of the House? Do we have one? Does anybody have one? Does anybody know? Anyway, that's just so that you know, the most important part of what I'm telling you is that September 21st would be the end of that 180 calendar days. On to the next one, which was adopted in April 12th. The committee devote at least one meeting before the summer recess to hear from witnesses on the continuing challenges for publishers, creators, and artists as it pertains to fair compensation for their work in educational publishing in Canada. So that's number two. Number three. Okay, we also have, this was adopted June 11th, that the committee invite officials from the Department of Canadian Heritage to testify about the funding for the discovery of the remains of 215 Indigenous children on the grounds of a former residential school in Kamloops. That was from Mr. Waugh just recently. We talked about that. That's the other one. We also have the ongoing issue of Facebook and the correspondence we've had after our summons to, what's his name again, Mr. Housefather? I can't believe I just forgot his name. Help me out.
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Sorry,
Zuckerberg.
Mark
Yes, Mark Zuckerberg.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I couldn't find my unmute.
No, that's okay. You've been quite vocal on this, so I wanted to open the floor up to you to fill in the details. My apologies. How can I forget Mr. Zuckerberg? Yes, of course. So we have the ongoing issue about him appearing before committee. I can brief you on that so far, and perhaps Mr. Housefather can as well, as he's been involved. But there is that issue, and of course, we just adopted the motion from Ms. McPherson regarding the deal from 2017, the agreement with Netflix and Department of Canadian Heritage. And of course, the final part, it would be the independent body for complaints in sport, which was a study we look into as we just spoke about. Do I see anyone with comment? Before I go for comments, so I want to highlight those two things that regarding a timeline. So we have the anti-Asian racism motion, which talks about no later than 180 days from the adoption of the motion, which takes us to September 21st. And of course, the educational publishing issue means ask for a one meeting before summer recess. Now, I'll go to good. Mr. Champoux.
Oh, good. Vous avez l'air content de...
You seem happy. I have a question and a proposal that we can discuss. The first has to do with the anti-Asian racism, and I remember the context of that motion very clearly, and we want to carry out this study, but I don't think that at that time we believed that C10 would take as much time, and I was wondering if, or what happens. We won't be sitting this summer, most likely. We don't know what's going to happen in the fall. If we don't meet that deadline of September 21st, what would be the consequences? Could we possibly examine this study as a priority in the fall and request a delay because C10 took us so much more time? And my second proposal and question is also a question for Mr. Reyes regarding copyright, because copyright is an issue that is important for me as well, and I think we had promised Mr. Reyes that we would examine this. There is an urgent need for us to examine that, so I propose that we start the study on harassment and abuse in sports Friday, and we could summon public servants and sports associations, and Monday we could do the study on copyright that we promised for Mr. Reyes. At the end of the session would be quite busy for us, but it would be time well spent. So that's the proposal that I have for you. I am open to comments, but there's also the question regarding the 21st of September deadline, because we will probably not be able to meet that deadline.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shampoo. Just before I go to Ms. McPherson, just a clarification. There are no punishments per se, or if we ignore a deadline, or if we choose to. These are just self-imposed guidelines. These are self-imposed deadlines, I should say, and there are no heavy ramifications if we do not meet them. However, you would need to move a motion if you want to change something within that. As far as the dates are concerned, I hear what you're saying. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did bring up the House calendar, so we would have one meeting in September before the deadline. So
yes, thank you.
So just to clarify that it would be possible to have a meeting, and certainly it is a topic that is very important to me and very important to this committee. I'm sure all members on this committee that we examine this. Unfortunately, like many have said, the work on C10 took much longer than we anticipated, and we have not been able to get to our other pieces of work. The only thing that I just want to raise that I think is important is Mr. Wah's motion that he brought forward regarding the minister visiting, or the officials of visiting for the children that were found in Kamloops. And the reason I say that is, of course, it's urgent, it's timely, it's something that we need to look at. So I would just want the committee to not let that fall off as well, though I recognize that we are looking down the canon of 3 meetings, and that is all we have left together.
Yes, we have 3 meetings left, yes. And just for a clarification, in September, we don't really have the schedule per se. If we maintain the current one, yes, Ms. McPherson is right, we would have 1 meeting. So please bear that in mind. That is, of course, dealing with the anti-Asian racism and self-imposed deadline of September 21st. Ms. DeBruzen.
Thank you. So I think we're slowly coming to a bit of agreement on the idea of study. I'm not saying complete agreement, but at least I think I heard that from Ms. McPherson as well.
Sorry, Ms. DeBruzen, I apologize. You just, your internet connection just stopped for a while. Could you repeat what you just said?
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So I was just saying, if I heard Ms. McPherson correctly, I believe that that she's also in agreement with the idea of starting with Mr. Wah's study, which I believe, given it's Indigenous History Month, Indigenous Peoples Days on Monday, there are a lot of reasons, and I think it's a pressing issue that many Canadians are very concerned about. So my suggestion in ordering, which is where we're at this point, is if we could start with that study on Friday, move, and then on Monday, if we wanted to, we could go to Mr. Reyes' study about copyright, which required a meeting before the end of the sitting. And the sports study, I agree, is important. The only concern, if I heard Ms. Bissett correctly, is that it requires more time than just one meeting. So, it gives us some time to actually come up with a full witness list and a study plan, so that maybe could be what we would choose to kick off when we get back in September. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. DeBruzen, and I apologize because for some reason my sound left me. It seems to be fixed now, so I don't want to alert anybody in the IT department. But you said this Friday, you're proposing this Friday to start with which study?
Mr. Waugh's study.
Oh, yes, okay, all right.
And then the Monday go to
Monday,
the
yeah.
copyright study.
The publishing, okay. All right, so we heard those. Mr. Champoux.
J'ai une question.
I have a question. Mr. Roy's motion is important, and I wonder, is it for our committee or for Indigenous Affairs? I know that there are many files that overlap, but in this case, I wonder, should that not be a priority for Indigenous Affairs instead?
Mr. Chair, can I answer that question?
One moment. Okay, so the question was directed at Mr. Waugh. I probably should give him the option of voicing his opinion if he so desires, or I could just go to Ms. DeBruzen. Mr. Waugh, if you could just hold your microphone close to your mouth when you speak.
Yeah, I do believe it is timely, Mr. Chair. That's the reason. Heritage gave $40,000 for it was a grant for the radar ground penetration. Other Indigenous groups are asking if they can get the same grant for the machine to find the bodies spread out over this country. So I know you're having trouble hearing me, so that's all I'll say. Heritage Department did give the $40,000 to the radar equipment, and that's why there's big stories everywhere in this country with this now.
Okay, Ms. DeBruzen, did you want to comment on that?
Just to reaffirm what Mr. Waugh said, it was a Path to Healing program, and it was a Heritage funded part. So it does actually fall within Heritage, this piece.
Okay, thank you both for that clarification. Mr. Reyes.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bruzen's proposal is quite interesting. Mr. Roy's issue is important, and I think that we should examine it on Friday as Mr. Bruzen has proposed. And then Monday, we could work on the copyright issue, and to respond to Monsieur Champoux's request, we could send a clear message. Because of the complexity of the issue, we're going to spend a lot of time on this study. Perhaps we could have a unanimous motion of the committee which sends the clear message that the topic is important and that when the House resumes, the committee will have worked during the summer to create a plan. We will have the time to send our witness lists for the different experts, and we could start working on this as soon as the House resumes. I think that it will still be a pressing issue. It's a very significant file, so I think that we will be able to send a clear message of the importance of the matter. We don't have enough time, so I would like to do things properly when we come back in the fall.
Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also agree that it would be timely to do Mr. Waugh's study on Friday. I think everybody in the country is talking about what happened with residential schools, and I think this is Indigenous. The National Indigenous Day is Monday. I think this is the time to do it. Je voudrais juste aborder la question.
I would like to talk about what Monsieur Champoux raised. It is a very important issue, and I thought we might invite two national organizations the Canadian Olympic Association, and on the podium on Monday in order to start the study so that over the summer Canadians can talk about the issue and we can come back in the fall with a more in-depth study. I agree that it is very important. I would like for us to start that study on Monday, but I will go with the will of the committee.
Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing just a couple things here that are starting to line up. And the immediate, of course, would be after today's meeting. Yes, we have two meetings left. So Friday, I'm hearing that we should start with the motion that was put forward regarding the Kamloops residential school issue on Friday. And then the following Monday, we do the motion on the educational publishing in Canada. Do I see any dissension from that? I don't see any, and it looks like we can put that to rest for the end of this spring. I would like to have some direction though about where. Oh, I see Mr. Lewis with his hand up. Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
After a year and a half, I couldn't find the raise hand function. That's an embarrassment. I apologize. Are we limited? I think the Mr. Waugh's motion is important. Is there a hard deadline if we find a good discussion and that has to stop in one meeting? Is that something that we have to put in, or are we saying we're starting with that study?
That's a valid point. Here's what I will put forward for the committee for them to consider, for you to consider. How about, since, yes, the deadline that you speak of is on the calendar September 21st. Now, we don't know what the exact schedule is going to be when we reconvene in September, when the House sits again, but we do have a hard deadline for 180 days. Here's what we could do. On Friday, we will have our initial meeting. At the end of that meeting, we can have a discussion amongst us as to where do we go from here. Again, this is a self-imposed deadline. It's not as strict. Maybe at the end of that meeting, if a motion is required to change it, we can do that. Does everyone understand? Is that okay? I'm just saying we have the first meeting. At the end of that meeting, this Friday, we can make a decision on where to go from there. Mr. Champoux.
Je suis pas sûr, Monsieur le Président, de comprendre.
I'm not sure that I understood what study you're talking about when you're talking about Friday. The first proposal seemed to be that we'll start Mr. Roy's motion and then Mr. Reyes' motion on Monday, but now you seem to be talking about the anti-Asian racism motion. Can you clarify, please?
Oh, sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but no. I was talking about, oh my goodness, yes, I was. You're right. I apologize. I was wondering why people look so puzzled. I confused the two. I apologize. Right. The 180 calendar days was from the anti-Asian motion. My goodness, you people, one of the great things about being a committee chair of this committee is that you're so much smarter than I am. It's the best. I love it. Anyway, nevertheless, yes. Okay. That aside, we probably should still run the same type of thing this coming Friday. So this Friday, we can have the full meeting, and at the end of the meeting, we can make a decision about from there. How's that? Okay, seeing on that hand. Thank you for your patience. And then on Monday, of course, we can do the we can follow up, of course, with the educational publishing in Canada issue regarding copyright and so on and so forth. Now, that being said, would you like to start a discussion as to when we come back, what a priority could be? Because here's the situation. At the end of June, this type of format will not be sanctioned anymore. I don't know if it will. Obviously, something has to be done, but nevertheless, that sort of thing ends. So most of the conversations, I would assume, when it comes to organizing the fall will occur offline. We can correspond through Amy, the clerk, and we can decide how we want to organize by helping to set up witnesses and so on and so forth before we come back. However, that being said, there are several motions here. Do we have any thoughts on what we'd like to do when we reconvene in the fall? I'm just looking for a general priority list. I see Mr. Reyes.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chair, I think that we should start Mr. Champous's study. I think that will be the clear message that we can send, and it would give the clerk and the analysts and staff enough time to prepare a plan. And we can send our witness list, the witnesses that we would like to hear for that study. That's my proposal, and we'll be sharing how important that issue is.
Okay. There's anyone else have any opinions on the fall? As far as I won't say it be written in stone, but as a possibility of a priority list, or I'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, we'll see no further discussion. I'll leave Mr. Reyes' comments, the final comment on that. Therefore, we do have 2 meetings left. We've come to the decision that on Friday, we will discuss Mr. Wah's motion. We'll start that meeting, start that process, start that study. And then the following Monday, we will have 1 meeting as requested on the educational publishing in Canada, and that will take us to the end of the spring sitting for us in the committee. Now, is there any other business anyone wishes to discuss? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Amy just sent me a friendly little note reminding me, how about a witness list? We need some ideas on a witness list for this coming Friday. I look to Mr. Wah, did you want to start? I don't know if you're able to put your hand up, but I think you may want to weigh into this.
Yeah, in the motion.
If I could just get you to hold on to your microphone again.
Okay, yeah. So
Go ahead,
in the
sir.
motion, it was department officials. And the second one was the chief of the residential schools from the Kamloops area. Now, you may want more in the second hour, and that's fine. But the first hour would be the department officials, because they've received, I believe they've received a lot of requests for this grant. And the second one would be Kamloops. And we can send you the information from Kamloops. We'll get some names.
Monsieur le Président, l'interprétation se fait pas.
Oh, sorry.
We're not hearing interpretation. I apologize.
I tell you what I will do. I think Mr. Wah, I'll just rephrase what he just said, which is to say that he wants the people that are specifically mentioned in the motion, yes, are there. To expand on that, if you want others, you have to let us know as soon as possible. But I think that's a pretty, Mr. Wah with a nod. Was that the only people right now that you continue to? Okay, he says yes. So the people mentioned in the motion are the people that he wishes to invite for that particular meeting. That's it. Now, Madam de Bruzen?
Actually, just following up with what Mr. Wah said, there are certain witnesses that are listed directly within the motion, but if there's a belief that we need additional witnesses, that we could maybe provide some names by a certain date rather than to discuss it here. I think you probably still have a full crew based on what's said in the motion that Mr. Wah set out. But if for some reason that witness list or part of that witness list doesn't work out, maybe it might make sense for us to have until, I don't know, I would rely on the clerk for what's a reasonable timeline given it's such a short timeline. But we could provide additional names, perhaps, might be one way of dealing with it.
Okay, Mr. Champoux.
Si, Monsieur le Président, si on...
If we open the door to inviting more witnesses in the time that we have left for that short study, I would like to know how that's going to work, because there's a ratio to respect, and usually when the Liberal and Conservative parties have 4 or 5, the NDP and the Bloc have 1. So I just want to ensure that we can respect that all parties will want to invite witnesses.
So what I will do is this: we'll stick to the witness list as put in the motion itself, and then we can make a decision at the end of the meeting. I just wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable with that. The other witness list I was speaking of was the one for Monday, which is Mr. Reyes' motion on educational publishing. We need to establish a deadline, which would be Wednesday, normally 2 days from now. However, I would stress to everyone here, please, when it comes to educational publishing in Canada, we have the one meeting, of course. Please send it to us as soon as possible, because we have to set up, since we have Friday and Monday meetings, it's like we have to set up witnesses for 2 meetings at once during the week. Ms. DeBruzen, sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you had your hand up. Okay. So I won't get into it any further about the witness list unless Mr. Reyes, it was your motion. Did you want to comment on any potential witnesses, or would you rather just send in your names in the next little while?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In order to answer your question, there are 2 organizations in Canada, and once the parties send you their lists, you'll probably have the same witnesses, the 2 main organizations. If there's a third, I will turn to you and your expertise and to the staff's expertise in order to fill things out. There's only 1 meeting, so we'll probably only hear from 3 witnesses. So I will send the list of the 2 organizations. Perhaps by the end of the meeting, we could all agree on that.
If we need to discuss it on Friday at the end, we'll make a few, I'll clear a few minutes for that as well. In the meantime, there was something I wanted to add to that, and I can't remember what it was. Nevertheless, so Monday, like I said, Friday and Monday, I have specific deadlines, obviously Wednesday, but honestly, if you have someone in mind, please send it to us as soon as possible, given the tight time frame we are under. So that being said, anything further to that? On these 2 meetings, I know what it was I wanted to ask you. Do you want to do the format that we ended with before C10, which was we have a 2-hour meeting with no break? If we have, let's say we have, well, it doesn't matter how many witnesses we have. Would you rather do the 2 hours with all witnesses, or would you rather break it up hour to hour and then have different witnesses? Mr. Champoux.
Je vais soumettre.
I would like to share a quick thought. If we invite people who are directly involved with the issue in Kamloops, perhaps they should be the only witnesses. If we invite witnesses that are less directly concerned with that residential school, well, then they could have a second time slot. But that's just a thought.
Okay, so yes, so I think we're going to stick to the witnesses that are within Mr. Waugh's motion for now. Yes, I totally agree. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll schedule it for a full 2 hours with how many witnesses we have, and we'll see how far we go with that. Okay, any other business anyone would like to bring up? Great. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you on Friday at our usual place and usual time. Thanks, everyone. Meeting adjourned.